and it happens to be a Heracross in the back. So these Psychic Fangs are about to turn into Psychic Bangs. What is going on, everyone? Ox here with another video. If you're new to the channel, we do upload Pokemon Go content mostly related to PvP, and if you're a returning subscriber like Emilio Olvera, thank you for the support. In today's video, we are taking a look at some battles in the Open Ultra League featuring a team with a very spicy backline duo consisting of LUXRAY and COBALION with a Trevenant in the lead. LUXRAY and COBALION are both ranked well outside of the top 150 for the Ultra League on PvPoke. Despite these low rankings, they do still have some pretty solid matchups within this meta. Of course, a backline duo like this is going to be very weak to a Pokemon like Swampert, so for that reason we are going to be utilizing a very strong counter to Swampert in the lead in the form of Trevenant, which leaves this team operating as an ABB style. While I do believe that both LUXRAY and COBALION are underrated for the Ultra League, I would not necessarily recommend running them both on the same team. There are some potential threats to this entire line, but despite that, we were able to pull out some positive sets with this team, which we will be analyzing in today's video. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider leaving a like and a comment down below. It really helps the channel grow. And without any further ado, let's jump into the first battle right now. Alright, so let's jump into these battles right here. Trevenant, COBALION, and LUXRAY. Taking a look at the threat score from PvPoke, actually significantly lower than a lot of these spice teams we've run this season. A lot of the Pokemon you see mentioned on that list are actually ones you won't encounter too often in the Ultra League meta. But right here we have Trevenant into Cresselia for battle number 1. I actually build up to Shadow Ball and throw immediately, which I don't necessarily like because it is somewhat predictable and the opponents could potentially try catching that move onto a Pokemon like Snorlax. Fortunately for us, the opponent does stay in, and we make a great swap into COBALION to catch this move from Cresselia, and this in turn also lures out one of the hardest counters to this backline in Swampert. So going for these Sacred Swords right here, we can't really do too much to the Swampert, but the opponent is going to burn one of their shields right here. We are going to reach another Sacred Sword, just looking to do some chip damage to the Swampert at this point before coming in with the Trevenant. This is one of the hardest walls to Swampert, especially if the Swampert is not running Sludge Wave, and for the most part in the Ultra League, a lot of these Swamperts are running the standard moveset of Hydro Cannon plus Earthquake. So typically in this matchup, you could overfarm a little bit before throwing the Seed Bomb, but the opponent actually decides to shield up, which in turn forces us to burn a shield on Trevenant as well. So this is a somewhat unorthodox play here from the Swampert, but it is going to allow us to overfarm a bit more before finally taking it out with this Seed Bomb. The opponent then comes in with a Registeel. At this point, just going to stay in with the Trevenant, look to get off one Shadow Ball, and then allow the opposing Registeel to take us out, ideally putting this Registeel in a range where only one Wild Charge from the LUXRAY will be able to take it out. LUXRAY is able to survive any one move from the Registeel, so we are going to build up towards 2 Wild Charges, the first of which hopefully will be enough to take out the Registeel, and the second one should be more than enough to send this Cresselia packing to Cancun. Bang! There it is, off to a 1-0 start here with this team. Let's hop into battle number 2. So for this next battle, we will be leading Trevenant once again, this time into a Giratina altered form. This lead is somewhat dependent on the moveset of the Giratina, and with the opponent swapping out immediately, it could likely mean that they are running Dragon Breath instead of Shadow Claw. So the opponent did safe swap into a Clefable, and we are responding with COBALION. This is a pretty solid answer right here. We are running Metal Claw as the fast move, and we are part Steel, so only taking neutral here from these charms. I decided to go for the Stone Edge right here to either get the guaranteed knockout or the second shield. I don't think Sacred Sword would be enough, so the opponent does end up double shielding right there in order to win alignment, and we come in with Trevenant, not able to take out Clefable before it reaches another move, which means we are forced to shield. And then the opponent swaps out into Giratina, so they invested 2 shields for what I thought was to win switch advantage, but but they end up in the same matchup anyway, so this is pretty good for us. Swap out into the LUXRAY. Giratina is now in Psychic Fang's range, which means we're able to take it out, and it happens to be a Heracross in the back. So these Psychic Fangs are about to turn into Psychic Bangs. I should have went for the Wild Charge on the second one, but I actually didn't think we would have reached it, so I went for a double Psychic Fang instead. Wild Charge would have been enough to KO, whereas Psychic Fangs is not. So if we did not have Trevenant still available in the back, that could have been a Harry Maguire type play there to throw the game. But fortunately for us, we do have the Trevenant and we're able to close out this game. Now that particular battle was against a Dragon Breath Giratina in the lead. Shadow Claw would be a lot more difficult, so I have inserted a bonus battle right here to show you how a matchup against a Shadow Claw Giratina would differ in comparison. So Shadow Claw Giratina is a lot more difficult because it does pose a bigger threat to Trevenant, and it is also a pretty hard wall to the two Pokemon we have in the back. So I think the best way to play this out is obviously try to hope to land a Shadow Ball, but if they are shielding, at some point you're going to have to swap out into Cobalion. So right here I did choose to invest our second shield and going for a very risky play with the Seed Bomb bait. Thankfully the opponent does double shield and we swap out into Cobalion. Unfortunately for us, the opponent did not throw energy at Cobalion, which means they have a bunch of energy stored. Swampert comes in, very hard counter right here. Not much we could really do, so just looking to throw a couple of Sacred Swords, put this very low, and Earthquake is going to be able to take us out. At this point, we need to come back in with the Trevenant. We do have a Seed Bomb ready to go, so I'm just going to get rid of this Swampert immediately and then swap out into the Luxray. The opponent comes in with a Sylveon, and this game is pretty much a GG. We should be able to reach 2 Wild Charges, which will take out the Sylveon, but our defense is going to be lowered by 4 stages, which means Giratina could easily take us out. I'm not sure if 1 Psychic Fangs plus a Wild Charge would be enough to take out the Sylveon, but even if it was, this Giratina had so much energy stored from earlier, and that's why it was so important to try and catch a move from Giratina onto the Cobalion earlier in the matchup. So Trevenant into Talonflame, this is a very challenging lead right here. Going to stay in with Trevenant, look to throw 1 Shadow Ball and then swap out into the Luxray. Actually go for the Seed Bomb bait instead right here, and we do force a shield. Now I come in with the Luxray. I am going to allow this move to go through. It happens to be a Brave Bird. It is resisted but still deals a lot of damage, and we successfully lure out the Swampert. At this point, I'm just going to look to spam a couple of Psychic Fangs. The opponent throws the Hydro Cannon after 1, so that's fine. We'll come back in with the Trevenants right here. Going to throw the Seed Bomb. Very unlikely for the opponent to shield this up, and we do end up taking them out. Now Talonflame comes back in, trying to outpace to another Shadow Ball right here. Going to be forced to use a shield instead. This is fine. Going to get off the Shadow Ball, either get the knockout or the second shield. And now that we have taken the second shield, I'm going to swap out into Cobalion. But as you could see, we get some lag instead. And unfortunately for us, I now have no idea what the energy for this Talonflame is at. They come in with a Clefable. Very good matchup right here for the Cobalion, of course. And I figured the only win condition at this point was for us to shield up, commit to a complete Metal Claw farm, and hope that the Talonflame does not have a move ready, at which point 1 Stone Edge will be enough to KO. But clearly that was not the case. Had I known the Talonflame was already at a move, I would have likely thrown the Sacred Sword at the Clefable, preserving that shield, praying that we could somehow reach a Stone Edge on Cobalion before the Talonflame takes us out, but even then, I think it would be very unlikely. For this next matchup, we are met with Shadow Drapion, a horrible lead to see, and I go straight into our only hard counter to this thing, Cobalion, and the opponent was staying in before swapping out into a Alolan Ninetales, and at this point I was thinking, get the broomsticks, because this is looking like a potential sweep. Cobalion landing that massive Stone Edge on the Alolan Ninetales and going to laugh at this Weather Ball coming through. They bring in an Umbreon, and this is a triple hard counter loss. The funny thing here is that their team actually triple hard countered Trevenant, but they had absolutely no answer for Cobalion, just like the Dallas Mavericks had no answer for the Golden State Warriors, and they are off to the finals. Trevenant into Slowbro. This is a beautiful lead right here. Going to stay in this matchup and pretty much just go straight Seed Bomb at this point. We do build up to the Shadow Ball, which would do more damage, and then I swap out into Cobalion. The main reason for the swap here is because we have two good answers to Slowbro anyways, and we need to lure out the Swampert if they have it, but instead they bring in Togekiss, which means they are not expecting this. Bang! There it is. Togekiss not appreciating that whatsoever. Slowbro comes back in, going to throw one Sacred Sword, and then come in with the Luxray. So we bring in the Luxray, going to shield up this Psychic right here, and then I considered committing to a complete Snarl down, but changed my mind at the last second, thinking I could outpace to this move. Unfortunately, I was not able to, but we get a refund on energy. Not a real CMP. And now the opponent is down to their final Pokemon, which happens to be a very spicy Raikou. We get the final shield. They can no longer swap out to reset the debuff since it is their final Pokemon. I bring in the Trevenant. This should only be a wild charge. We get to the Shadow Ball. If they happen to reach a Shadow Ball of their own, we would have thrown this game, but we do end up picking up the win right there. GG. Let's hop into the next one. So Luxray and Cobalion looking pretty good so far. Let's see if we could keep these wins rolling. Hopping into the next battle, we are leading Trevenant, this time into an Umbreon. Very challenging lead right here. And we are going to swap out this time into the Luxray instead. This lures out the Swampert, which is what we want. Going to throw the Psychic Fangs right here. That's going to lower the defense. I do like running Snarl because of how quickly we do reach these Psychic Fangs, and against a Pokemon like Swampert, that is very useful. Right here, we would survive a Hydro Cannon, so I do decide to no shield. And this presents an interesting opportunity where I actually am going to shield up the second one because I know we could reach two Psychic Fangs, and this will either guarantee us that we win switch or force both shields from the opponent, and I'm okay with either one of those situations. So realistically speaking, being locked into a Luxray vs Swampert matchup and coming out of that with both shields from the opponent is probably the best case scenario for us. We take out the Swampert with Trevenant, going to see the Umbreon come back in. We're going to throw one Seed Bomb here and try to catch the Foul Play onto Cobalion. So we are doing everything perfect in this matchup despite being pretty much hard countered throughout. Venusaur comes in right here. Because we have a shield advantage, this is actually playable for us. Going for the Stone Edge right here, dealing some nice neutral damage. And now I am going to shield up the second Frenzy Plant. My hope here is that the opponent is running Foul Play plus Last Resort on their Umbreon. Need this Sacred Sword to take them out, and thankfully we are able to do that. We now have a decent amount of HP remaining on the Cobalion. Umbreon comes back in. Just need to spam out as much damage as possible right here. But this game is likely going to come down to the moveset. Is the opponent running Psychic? It's only a Last Resort, which means we get to another Sacred Sword right here. This is going to put the opponent so low to the point that even Trevenant could finish them off. And the opponent doesn't want the smoke. Able to take that game. Let's hop into the next battle. And we have Trevenant once again into Talonflame. Last time we stayed in with Trevenant and it didn't work out. So this time we're swapping out into Luxray, building up to the Wild Charge. This is definitely enough to knock out Talonflame, but the opponent does not respect it, calling the bait. Absolutely insane. We are going to shield up the Flame Charge, and now I know for a fact that this guy is a certified lunatic, bringing a Poliwrath into Luxray. That time they feared the Wild Charge, but not this time. Bang! There it is. That's payback for the no shield on the Talonflame. Definitely worthy of an instant replay. And the opponent comes in with a Melmetal. Could have thrown the Psychic Fangs right there, but it is what it is. Luxray has done its job. We'll come in with Cobalion instead. Both of us are farming an insane amount of energy. Going to throw the Sacred Sword and then try to catch the superpower onto Trevenant. This entire team is taking that no shield on the Talonflame personal right here. And speaking of Talonflame, here it comes once again. Trevenant's going to shield up the Flame Charge. This allows us to reach the Shadow Ball and finally give it the bang it deserves. Melmetal going to come back in, dump all of its energy in order to get rid of this Trevenant, at which point Cobalion will come back in, still with a lot of HP. And you could definitely make the argument that maybe I should have waited for the opponent to throw a superpower first before throwing this Sacred Sword. But in the end, it's not going to make a very big difference. Cobalion, the Sword of Justice, able to Metal Claw down. And I could tell you right now, there was a lot of justice served in that battle. So let's keep it rolling, hopping into the next battle. We are leading Trevenant into a Jellicent. This is a pretty good lead to see right here. The opponent swaps out into Ninetales, and we come in with Cobalion. We experience a little bit of that Season 12 Go Battle League preview, because apparently they didn't change anything for the upcoming season. Dazzling Gleam, we take that very well. We could pretty much go straight Sacred Sword at this point, still dealing neutral damage and able to Metal Claw down. Jellicent will come back in, going to look to throw a Stone Edge right here. And if the opponent decides to go for Bubble Beam, we actually will survive, at which point I'm going to consider banking the Sacred Sword for later and swapping out into the Luxray, since both Luxray and Trevenant have a pretty good matchup here against Jellicent. We call the Bubble Beam bait. You love to see it. Going for the Psychic Fangs right here. That forces a shield from the opponent. And this time, I am going to call the Shadow Ball. So everything is going right thus far in this battle. The opponent's going to throw another move. I decide to shield. That is the first mistake right there. Going to throw a Psychic Fangs now. The opponent decides to not shield that, which means we get to another 2 Psychic Fangs right here. And this time the opponent does decide to shield, which means they're going to be taken out by the next Psychic Fangs. So a lot of things happening right there. Scrafty in the back. This is where I make the biggest mistake of the battle, completely forgetting that my attack has been lowered from all those bubble beams. I should have went for the Psychic Fangs instead of the Wild Charge, which would have lowered the defense on the Scrafty. This Seed Bomb puts the Scrafty in Sacred Sword range. Remember, we have a Sacred Sword stored on the Cobalion, so this game should be over. Oh wait, I forgot. This is Go Battle League, where nothing works properly. Not able to get off this Sacred Sword, and we end up losing that game. GG, let's hop into the next one. Can't wait for Season 11. So jumping into the next battle, we have Trevenant into Gengar. This is kind of an awkward situation right here, so I'm just going to do as much damage as I can with Shadow Claw. Shield up whatever they throw, and if it happens to be a Shadow Punch, I'm going to try and catch the second one onto the Cobalion while storing all of this energy on our Trevenant for later in the match. The opponent ends up staying in, which does allow us to Metal Claw all the way down, and they bring in an Alolan Muck, which is definitely not an answer to Cobalion. Sacred Sword forcing the first shield, going to throw the second one right here, and the opponent is going to double shield. So I'm starting to think they are extremely weak to Cobalion. Going to no shield the Dark Pulse right here. We have a bunch of energy stored on the Trevenant as well, so Sacred Sword comes through. At this point, the Alolan Muck should more or less be in a Shadow Ball range, so I'm going to allow Cobalion to go down, end up surviving that Dark Pulse, swap out into the Trevenant. Shadow Ball takes out the Alolan Muck, and it is an Empoleon in the back. So this is actually beautiful because all 3 of our Pokemon actually have a very fun time against Empoleon. And unfortunately for LUXRAY, it's going to find itself in a spot where Harry Maguire should have spent the majority of this season on the bench for this game. Simultaneous knockout. LUXRAY still available in the back means we win. Let's hop into the next battle. And similar to how the video started, this is how it's going to end. Trevenant into Cresselia once again. Opponent is staying in. We're building up towards the Shadow Ball. And once again, throwing as soon as we reach it. The opponent once again lets it go through. Last time we caught the move onto Cobalion. This time we're going to tank it instead. And that does hurt quite a bit. Registeel comes in. I'm going to throw a Shadow Ball right here before swapping out into Cobalion. Now because Cobalion is actually part steel, it does take a lot of damage here from Focus Blast, and because Registeel is so bulky, Sacred Sword is only doing about a quarter of its HP. So Registeel actually wins this matchup in most situations. I'm okay with this. Cresselia is already very low, so we'll just come back in here with the Trevenant, commit to the Shadow Claw down, and see what the opponent wants to do. They come in with Cresselia and then swap out instantly into Togekiss, almost as if they were expecting to catch a Seed Bomb, but they do end up shielding the Shadow Ball, and we come in with LUXRAY. Now right here I make a mistake. I actually thought they were shields down. Only reason why I'm throwing Wild Charge so soon, and thankfully they did not shield that because we could have ended up throwing that game if they did. The correct play would have been to build up to 2 moves. Maybe they thought it was some sort of reverse tell and took a gamble on it being a Psychic Fangs. We do end up taking that game right there. LUXRAY and Cobalion are both very fun spice picks and I highly recommend them, just not on the same team. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and a comment down below. And if you'd like to see more content like this, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.